Hello and welcome to another Atomic Geekdom author interview. I am Matt, and if you are watching the YouTube portion of this right now, just know it is a bad allergy day for me. I'm going to blink a lot and rub my eye,
Oh
so
no.
I'm going to look like a crazy person a little
Oh
bit.
no.
Um,
Me
but
too.
but but other
I'll
than
tell you a
that,
secret. Can I tell you something terrible I'm going to completely derail your
you
intro.
can completely derail me all you
I
want. You're the guest.
I uh I have cat allergies.
Oh
I also
no.
have cats.
You know,
So
well,
every day is an allergy day for me.
I'll introduce you and then I'll tell you a story too about cat allergies. My guest today, I'm very excited. You've already heard from her, and I just her new book is coming out. I'm always excited when I discover new authors that I enjoy, but I'm extra excited when I discover an author that I'm like, oh, they've only written a couple things, so I get to see where they go from here. Which reminds me, I still need to go back and read your first novel, but your
Oh,
new
thanks.
novel, The Stardust Grail, is coming right out. Actually, probably by the time this is posted, it will already be out. And so, Yume Kitasei, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you. And it's funny
Yeah.
you say cat allergies because my oldest stepdaughter also has a horrible cat allergy, and I have a cat. My wife and I have a cat. She doesn't live
No.
at home. She doesn't live at home anymore. She lives on her own, and so every time she comes over, we do because my cat will run and hide. My cat's not very friendly. He'll run off and like hide in a bedroom. But before she comes over, we're always trying to like, okay, let's vacuum really
Oh
good. Let's
no.
get all the cat hair off everything,
Oh
so she's
dear.
not
Does it
totally
work?
miserable. Uh, yeah, a little bit. She and her boyfriend really wanted a cat really bad, and they tried to meet one of those supposedly
Yeah.
hypoallergenic ones, and it didn't work because she likes cats. She just can't be. And so she's considering getting some of like the allergy shots because they still kind of want a cat. They have a dog, but they also kind of want a cat.
Oh my gosh. I would like to say that it has dissuaded me from having pets, but you just take a Claritin every day.
Yeah,
It's fine.
exactly.
It's totally fine.
So
Yeah.
I want to jump right in and talk about just a couple things because uh number one, I already posted a written review for the Stardust Grail over on
Thanks.
atomicgeekdom.com, and I started out. I said right at the top, I'm like, I'm not gonna bury the lead. I had a blast reading this book,
Oh, great.
and I which is weird. I like sci-fi, but I don't consume a ton of it. So when I was reading
Oh,
your
great.
book, like I'm a huge Star Trek person. I watch a ton of Star Trek and everything, in Star Wars, and I read some like dark military sci-fi horror kind of like blend, but I hadn't read just a straight out sci-fi novel in a while, and just when I was done, I was like, I need to find more sci-fi books like this one because this is fun. And the only way I can describe it, and you can, is this is Star Wars meets Indiana Jones. It's kind of like this
Yes. Yeah.
big
Yeah.
space adventure, but also a heist and also looking for like space artifacts, which is so much fun.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That's exactly how I pitched it to the publisher actually when I
oh,
saw it.
really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Indiana Jones in space.
Hmm.
Except they're stealing artifacts from museums and returning them to alien civilizations.
Which,
But
yeah, did you well, number one, have you always been like, did you grow up like a big sci-fi kind of geek, or was that something?
I I would say yes. I read a lot of science fiction growing up. I loved Star Wars. I got into Star Trek as an adult, but I
Mhm,
loved Star Wars as a kid, and I was obsessed with it for many many years.
mhm,
Um, and I read a lot of Arthur C. Clarke and Ray Bradbury and
mhm,
Octavia Butler and Ursula K. Le Guin and sort of a lot of things that I read as I was growing up.
mhm.
Um, in addition to a lot of other things. So I read I would say across most genres. So I'm excited whenever people say they don't really read science fiction, but they read something that I wrote because that's really kind of my desire is to like I think science fiction is way more way more for everyone than I think everyone
Mhm.
realizes.
Yeah.
And when you say like, I want to find more science fiction books like this, I'm like, oh well, Matt, I've got lots of recommendations for you. There's so many out there that are just like
Good,
this.
I
And
like that
yeah, it's
because like
great.
I
Yeah.
said, like I have friends that are more of the I know I want to call it hard sci-fi, and I know there's probably another term for it, but like you
That's what you're
know,
asking, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the last one I remember reading was not Old Man's War. That's
John
not
Scalzi.
John
Yes.
Scalzi. That actually was it Old Man's War, or was it
Or
now I
was it
can't.
his what is his new was it maybe his new trilogy, The Interdependency?
No, this one
Collapsing
was
Empire? No?
no. Now I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, I was like, it's a little bit dry. It wasn't John Scalzi. There's no way it was John Scalzi. I think it was
No,
older
John
than
Scalzi
that.
is not dry.
No,
Yeah.
and that was my.
Yeah.
That's where I was going basically when I sidetracked myself trying to remember the title of it. Was basically I was just like, yeah, it's a little dry, and then I was like, that's not like that. That can't be right. And so, like I
Yeah.
said, the Stardust Grail kind of injected me with like, oh yeah, this is what it can be
Yeah.
because it's adventure and it's um a lot of uh you introduce very interesting alien races. Like
Mm.
I'll say right off the bat, one of the things I appreciated a lot was Uncle was not a humanoid. One of the
Yeah.
things
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
one of in maybe this just comes from me being a Star Trek nerd, and Star Trek exists on
Yeah.
television where they have a very limited budget and everybody looks like.
It's just everyone's humanoid, right?
I pick on it all the time. I say, my favorite bit is, all right, guys, we're in the makeup
Yeah.
room. We have a new alien. What are we gonna do? Give it a weird forehead. Nah,
Right.
we did weird foreheads last time. Oh, well then, how long's it been since we did weird ears? And that's like,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, I feel like it sort of suggests some sort of conversion. I'm not conversion, but like there was some sort of seed that like sort of spread across the universe, and
there's an
that's how
entire
everybody ended up the
they
same.
did
Yeah.
they did explain it in Star Trek The Next
Right.
Generation.
Right.
There was an entire episode dedicated to the idea that there was an original humanoid race that kind of
Exactly.
to save themselves seeded the entire galaxy, and
Right.
that but and they
Which is
basically
kind of creepy. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not creepy. Well,
it
it's
is,
not,
but it
I guess creepy
yeah.
is maybe the wrong word, but it's like you want it as an earthling, as a real earthling,
Mhm.
right? I personally am much more enticed by the notion that life is out there
Mhm.
that has nothing to do with our life,
Yeah.
and it has like evolved completely differently,
Mhm.
and like could exist separate from our existence, right? Because there's something comforting about the notion that life in this universe isn't tied to what we do here. And if we if we
Yeah.
continue to keep screwing up the climate and we destroy the earth, something else will continue on,
And
you know,
that's
out
kind of where
there.
I was going with the whole
Yeah.
idea of like we know from actual science and people that kind of study
Yeah.
evolution and study exoplanets and everything that kind of like if we found alien life, there's a chance we may not even
Right.
recognize that it was life because it would be
Yeah.
so different from what we are. And when I got to this character, Uncle, and her entire species that I am completely blanking on, right?
Front row. Yeah.
Front row, thank you.
Yeah.
That like I had trouble even picturing them. It's not that you didn't do a good
Yeah.
job describing, but you're like she's kind of the shape of or Z is kind of the shape of a
Yeah.
potato, but also
Right.
has like kind of tentacles and then even more
Right.
tentacles. And then I'm like, I think maybe Z is purple, but I don't know. But like in my head, Z was purple.
Right.
And so I'm like,
Yeah.
even just picturing this being, which I just loved the heck out of. So
I
I
love
got
that.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the idea is based, there's a lot of theories out there, I guess.
Mhm.
Theories maybe is a strong word, because who knows, but like there's a lot of storytelling in science fiction to sort of sort of can take multiple paths. Like the people that we meet out there in the stars, maybe they're militaristic and they are like sort of they have the sort of the amplified worst qualities of humanity, the warmongering, like desire to conquer and be imperialistic and sort of consume other people. And I think that that is a natural instinct for any species that becomes dominant. But
Mm,
also like I think I'm also an optimist, and I think
yeah,
personally that like to get past that stage and there's like a whole tangent we could talk about with the great filter, but like to get past
sure.
that stage, you know I do think that there has to be some level of cooperation in a species, and some desire to seek other life in a more peaceful way
Hmm.
besides just consumption, that would have to sort of underpin a civilization that could get to that stage, and to have that level of wonder, and curiosity about other beings and other places to motivate a civilization to get to that stage of being interstellar.
Hmm.
So I guess I have a sort of ultimately mostly optimistic view about the people that we might find out there, you know,
Yeah.
e- laced with like I still think there it won't be utopia. There would be flaws to,
Oh, sure. I
interactions.
no, and I'm actually glad you went there because it is kind of one of those things where like Stephen Hawking famously said, uh, we need to stop broadcasting our location in the universe because
Yeah.
his notion was that anything out there might be dangerous. And I
Yeah.
kind of fall more in line with you. You brought up the concept of the great filter, which anybody that may not be familiar is the idea that uh possibly the reason that it's going to be difficult to discover life is that life may have a tendency to destroy itself before it becomes advanced enough to become spacefaring, um,
Right.
based, of course, only on knowledge of our own species. But so I kind of agree that the idea that like maybe if something is traveling through space, unless they are the beings from Independence Day that
Right.
completely destroyed their entire own world and need to suck other worlds' resources, like something else out there probably got it together enough to actually leave their planet and leave
Right.
their own solar system in a meaningful way. So
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. Yes, as well as my lovely wife brings me a drink. Thank you, sweetheart.
Ooh. What do you what is it? Oh, look at that.
It's a Diet Coke, babe. Diet Coke. Thank you.
I have a also a tension about Diet Coke as well,
Well, go
which
for
is
it.
that when I was in college, I used to do like basically like be a subject of psychology experiments for money. It was
Okay.
a nice gig that you could do just to like rack up money. So I would sign up for these experiments, and there was some experiment that I did that like it was like 1 week of Diet Coke consumption and basically rewired me to only think Diet Coke drink to taste
Hmm,
good.
interesting.
And I
Well,
think I got paid
wow.
like 25 bucks for it.
Hey, we're paying you, aren't we? Yeah, but I didn't know you'd be giving me electric shocks.
So
Ghostbusters.
it
Sorry,
was
I had
it
to.
was yeah.
You just reminded me of the opening of Ghostbusters.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I realize we've been talking about the Stardust Grail and going on, but we haven't even pitched it to people. So would you
Oh
mind
yeah, yeah.
summarizing your own novel so
Oh
that
gosh,
everybody
yes.
knows kind of what we're
My
talking
bad.
about and everything? That's okay.
Yes.
No, I
So
look at us. We're both off on tangents. So it's
yes.
both, it's not your fault. It's also my fault for not being a good direction keeper.
So the Stardust Grail, it's an interstellar, it's a space heist,
Hmm.
um, about a woman named Maya Hoshimoto who has spent the last 10 years stealing artifacts from museums and returning them to alien civilizations. And after a disastrous job, she's quit her job. She's gone to a sort of straight and narrow life of being an academic.
Hmm.
And her friend comes to her and tries to get her to do one last job to steal an artifact that could save a species from extinction
Hmm.
and possibly doom humanity in the process.
Yes, and that is one of the more interesting things because the idea is that I don't want to give too much away, but the idea is this artifact is keeping this species from reproducing, and they're the original spacefaring
Yeah,
species, and they're the only ones that know, or well, they've forgotten how to create these portals through space that make space
right,
travel possible. Um, and they all start collapsing. And humanity, I find it very
right,
interesting that humanity is now so kind of dependent on being part of an intergalactic community that it really would kind of destroy Earth in a way to be shut off from everybody else. That I found really
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is like right, like once we make contact theoretically, right?
Hmm.
What would it be?
Hmm.
What would it cost us, or would we be okay with shutting the door again?
Hmm.
And some people might, isolationists, I guess, might be like, yeah,
Yeah,
let's go
which
back
is
to it. Or some people might be like, anything to prevent that from happening.
right,
Yeah.
which is I don't know if you did this intentionally, and it's always weird when you talking about this was a big problem I had in English courses and literature courses my entire life was trying to discern author intention. And I
Right, right,
remember
right,
having a huge debate one time with a professor about like why are we even discussing what the author, we don't know, we can't ask, because it was somebody at that point that was deceased. I'm like, we don't know, we can't ask them, like, how do you
right.
know that this is what they intended? But it is kind of an interesting, this intergalactic parallel is I
Right.
found kind of like, oh, the like you just mentioned, the idea of isolationists and everything. It's like, no,
Hmm.
we right now live in a global community, and
Yeah.
it's not good to kind of shut everybody off from everybody else. There's
Hmm.
so much to know and learn and gain from other people.
Yeah.
um and so that kind of brings me around to Maya and having a because one of the things I'm big on just in all pop culture is I just love discovering, because I spent my whole life as just as an average white guy, seeing myself and my culture in
Hmm.
everything. And I got to
Yeah.
a point where I was just so bored with it, and I'm so
Hmm.
glad that people like you are being like, no, there's like this whole other thing that is to offer, and is so you can bring in Maya, and you can bring in like you brought in alternate pronouns. You had, now granted, uncle
Right.
is kind of like an alien being that maybe she, he, they might not apply anyway, but you had another
Hmm.
character that had, it was a human that had an entire other set of pronouns that
Right.
again I'm blanking on. And so
Yeah, yeah.
I really just kind of appreciated all that together into one just blend of just goodness and just community and
Yeah.
everything. I can't think of a better way to put it than that,
Yeah, no,
unfortunately.
I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about science fiction these days is there's just a lot more uh like just a lot more viewpoints and
Mhm.
diversity in the field, and like you can sort of see the richness in the different narratives that are being
Mhm.
published today. Um and as somebody who's mixed race, like
Mhm.
personally, like I think when I read a science fiction novel set in the future that
Mhm.
does not have mixed race characters, I'm sort of like, that's interesting. That's an like if that's an
Mhm.
intentional choice, that I don't know whether you're making a point that is intentionally like dark, because
Mm.
otherwise it's like very strange to me, right? Like the
Right.
future to me is inherently going to be diverse
Mhm.
both from a gender perspective and a racial perspective, because that's just like the direction that we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is exciting.
Yes.
So when I see science fiction that is just like, you know,
Mhm.
a hundred dudes on a spacecraft, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I wonder what you're trying to say about everybody else.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's one of the things that I'm loving about everything I love now, because we're just all it's just this idea of like, hey, we're all human and we're all here and we're all on this journey together, and we all have something to offer the planet or the galaxy, depending on
yeah,
what's out there. And even, you know, at the end of your book, and I'm not going to give it away, but it turns out, besides just
yeah,
the knowledge of space travel, just the
yeah.
Frenro as a species have so much to offer just because of what comes out of the end of the novel. And it's like we can't
Mm.
but on top of that, I
And there's a
also
dark side to it too, right?
there
So
is and
it's
and
like you gotta. It's like with every positive, there's always a negative.
But you also
Just like
created
yeah,
the other species that, offered a whole set of music to a whole
right,
different style of music and everything. And just I
yeah,
think I think what you really created, and there's no question here. I'm just complimenting what you came up with, is just this tapestry of just everybody has something beautiful to offer. So,
yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, which is I think I'm ultimately an optimist about life and you know I mean not to bring down the conversation to this level, but like,
yeah, it's okay.
I mean, you watch these TikTok videos, right? Of
Hmm.
these Instagram videos of like
Yeah.
different animals getting along with each other, and there's something, and we are human and we are watching these like these dogs cuddling with cats, and there's
Yeah.
why is it that we like that, right? And
Hmm.
why do they even ever like what appeals to them about each other? And I guess that's the point that I'm
Hmm.
trying to make, is that I think there is something about life that seeks other life regardless of what it is,
Yeah.
and that we'd all rather be together than alone.
Right.
And I guess that's a kind of corny thing to say, but like that is,
Hmm.
I guess, the fundamental thread that sort of runs under, everything that I write, because
Hmm.
that's just that's how I feel.
Yeah, it is kind of one of those things you were talking about, just cats and dogs and everything like that. But I just had the thought recently that, like, um, you know, uh, you always hear all the time in news media, at least, that the everything's falling down all the time, and it's like,
Yeah. Well, it is a little bit,
well,
right?
a little bit. There's plenty of problems and there's lots of work to do,
Yeah.
but also if you just go out into the world and live your life and like actually interact with people, it's like, eh, pretty much everybody is mostly okay, and they're pretty much mostly good when you
Yeah.
interact with them. So, and everybody's just trying to live their life. The other thing I thought of, since we're discussing tapestry and everything, communities and everything. You built such a world in this book that there's history and there's somewhere to go. And I wanted to know about both, to be honest. I wanted to know,
Yeah.
what is all this stuff that happened before that they keep talking
Yeah.
about? And then at the very end of the book, I'll be honest, I thought there was more. I got to the end and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, wait, what? That's the end? I don't get to know what's next? And so, do, uh,
So I was going a little bit, I don't know, like, one of the things that I always found really great about Star Wars is like, episode 4 comes out. First of all,
mhm,
it's episode 4, right? So it's like,
yes,
wait,
mhm,
what about 1, 2, 3? Like it doesn't exist, and it's like George Lucas is
mhm,
sort of playing on that serial thing, and you just get dropped right into the
mhm,
story without much explanation, and then
mhm,
you're in it, right?
yeah,
And then it ends, and it's the same sort of feeling of like, well, what's next?
what's next? Yeah,
And so that's sort of what I was going for, is
okay,
that. Now I will say, if I am really hoping that it sells well, and like my
uh-huh,
publisher will be interested in doing potentially like a prequel or a sequel.
Okay, that's what I was
I
gonna
would love
ask.
to,
I didn't know
absolutely
if
would love to write more,
okay.
but
Well,
usually for that to happen, a book has to sell pretty well.
sure, and I'm telling
Yeah.
everybody, buy this book. It's a blast.
Yeah,
You'll have
it's
a
good.
great summer.
Yeah.
You really will.
If you buy it, I will write more. Yeah, exactly.
but I wasn't necessarily even going to ask if you were going to, you know, but I was going to ask if you had any, because not everybody that writes is interested, and obviously series are big, and movies, pop culture just loves series
Yeah.
right now across all
Yeah.
mediums, but not everybody necessarily wants to do that, and so you kind of
Yeah.
answered my question right there. I was curious if this was material you would want to play with more, or if you were ready to move on to different material or anything like
I
that.
had such a good time writing this.
Mhm.
So, I love the characters and I would absolutely love to write more in this world. Um, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah,
That's
I would, but I also think like from a purely professional standpoint, like writing standalones is usually a safer bet because, you just don't know how well a book is going to do.
sure. And
Yeah.
and that's you hear all the time from readers like, "Oh, I don't want to dive into a series that's not done yet." And it's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not going to get done if nobody buys the
Yeah,
books.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the eternal,
So
it's and everybody kind of pokes fun at George R. R. Martin for not.
that's not a, I don't know if you can hear that. That's not a baby. That's my cat Filibuster.
Oh, I cannot hear that, but hello to
Okay, good.
Filibuster. No,
Sorry.
it's fine. I've got
Glad you can't hear. He's meowing incessantly right now.
it's fine. My If anybody hears weird noises, my bunny rabbit is just off to my left, and she sometimes plays with things and makes noise. So it's totally okay. But yeah, everybody is like, "Oh, I'm never going to get to read the end of Game of Thrones," and it's
Yeah.
like, well, that
Hey, at least you're
there's
lucky enough to have a TV show.
yeah, and there's TV show, and also
Yeah.
there's other books you can pick up and read, and other series you can enjoy, and
Right.
more of that series will come. Now, this is your second book, and just I
Yep.
said already that this may already be out by the time, but remind me,
Yes.
I had the release date right in front
June
of me.
11th.
June 11th. Okay, awesome. Wow, that's
Although I will say, fun fact about pre-orders, and not that
Mhm.
I'm pushing pre-orders or anything,
No, go for it.
but the real reason to pre-order a book is that sometimes you get it a week in advance. So
Mm,
I have some friends who just text me that their pre-order came in and it's like 8 days out. So
nice. Well, also, and the other thing
yeah,
is, I'll always push pre-orders too because it shows interest
yeah,
in the author, in the book, and it's
yeah,
especially helpful. Like, um, just to throw a name out there, not to pick on him, but like a pre-order for Stephen King is not like the
yeah,
most important thing in the world. I love Stephen King, but he's
right,
got no problem selling books. Pre-orders
yeah,
for newer or lesser known authors is a big deal. So, and I'll just
yeah,
say, I'll put this out there for myself. You because I'm a reviewer, I get early copies, but I
yeah,
pre-order
yeah.
anyway. I
Oh, that's
pre-order
so
my own
nice.
book anyway.
Yeah,
So I'm
but
gonna have
you shouldn't feel pressured to do that.
no, I don't.
It's wonderful that you do that, but don't
I
feel
don't
obligated. Yeah,
necessarily feel obligated to do it, but I'm like, I read the book and I'm like, well, I love this, and yeah, I've got this
yeah,
advanced
yeah.
copy here, but like, I want to help this author. I want to put in my numbers, so I pre-order anyway.
I
So,
I do something similar, which is beyond the NetGalley, which I do like requesting stuff.
hmm
Um, but I'll listen to something from the library, or I'll listen to something from the library, or read the ebook from the library, and then if I
mm-hmm.
like it a lot, I'll go and I'll buy my own copy.
Yeah.
Because I just want to have it and I want to be able to lend it to people.
hmm
So I do that too, where I will read it in some other way and then buy my own.
Yeah. Well, not to jump ahead of the Stardust Grail, which is
Yeah.
the most recent book, but are you already typing out words on another book? Is
Yeah, actually we have a deal for a third book, which
cool,
is also a standalone.
cool.
And that is going to be much more grounded. It's a grounded speculative fiction
hmm
novel set in sort of a near future Earth. And it's about two sisters who sail around the world in search of their missing sister.
Oh, very cool.
Um, yeah, and it's sort of in this world where, it's like basically a couple generations forward, and
Mhm,
for various reasons supply chains have collapsed. So it's
mhm,
both like technologically where we are, but sort of, I guess now I'm sort of seeing a parallel to a parallel theme here, but like where, countries are not as
mhm.
connected as they were before, and the world is sort of more fractured.
Okay, very cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited, and but it's interesting you see a parallel theme, but I like that. I like being able to pick up a series of books and kind of see what is on an author's mind and
Yeah,
kind of what
yeah.
is important to them.
A lot of anxiety, clearly, about the future.
You and I think several billion other people. So
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't think you're alone. I think it's okay. Well, Yume, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I don't want to take up your entire evening, but
No, thanks for having me.
yeah, and I
It's fun.
just I just like I said, I loved Stardust Grail. I haven't had a chance yet to read your first novel, but I can't wait to dive into that one. And like I said, it's exciting for me to discover an artist that I enjoy that is early on in their stuff, so that I know I
Definitely
have
not
so
well known.
well, yeah, but beyond that, just so that I know that I have so much more to look forward to
Oh,
in
thank
the
you.
future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just want to urge everybody again, go out and get started, and remind me also of the title of your first novel, because I want
The
everybody to
first one is thank you. The first one is called The Deep Sky.
the Deep Sky.
And the second was The Stardust Grail.
Yeah. So everybody go out
Yeah.
and pick up Deep Sky and Stardust Grail and have some good summer reads to hang out with and go on space adventures and have a great time.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Matt.
Thank you.